Hello, good evening, welcome. I always don't know what to say at first because I know nobody's here except one John for underscore four and Will Hunting Good, which I like that name. So if you're just joining us, please say hello. Let us know where you're from, and let's see. Favorite thing that's happened to the new year? What is your what is your favorite? What is the coolest thing that's happened since the new year? We've crossed over into the land of 2022. Um, if you're just joining us, please say hello. Let us know you're here. Let us know where you're from. We'll get started in just about a minute and 10 seconds. Beth Carducci, yes, you did. You did start your book. It's awesome. I'm so proud of you and jealous, envious. Not jealous, but I am envious because it's hard to start a book. So good for you. If you're just joining us, welcome to Community Conversations, formerly just Ethan, still just Ethan, but with more conversation, working out the details. Hey, Eric B, good to see you. Hope you're well and staying well in Houston. I know Houston's getting hit pretty hard with the Rona, so I hope you're okay and hanging in there. Hi, Mario. Welcome, welcome. Glad you're here for the first time. Nick, and appreciate the comment as well, Nick. Thank you. And thank you for showing up. We'll get started in just 15 seconds. If you're just joining us, hey, Carol, let us know you're here. Say hi, where you're from, if it's your first time. And I offered to suggest what's the coolest thing that happened this year? We're 11 days in. What's the big moment so far this year? What's a cool thing that happened? So with that, we're 2 minutes in. So I want to welcome everyone to the first episode of Community Conversations, formerly just Ethan. It's still just Ethan, but new name and perhaps new content. We will see. I'm glad you're. Hi, Jenna, if she's listening. That's great. So, and there's a Dave Raven. Hey, Dave. Good to see you. All the folks are here. We made it into the new year. That's awesome. I'll tell you more about community conversations in a second and what that means. It just means more of what we're doing, but I'll explain. Hey, Katerina, welcome for your first time. Hey, Caitlin, good to have you. Yeah, if you're just joining us, say hi. Let us know where you're from. And I offered to throw out favorite moment of the new year. What's happened? What's we're 11 days in. What goodness has happened to you? Let me get some housekeeping out of the way. So this is episode 1 of Community Conversations. It's super exciting. Hey, Nikki Bradley. My name is Ethan Smith. I'm a national advocate for the International OCD Foundation, which simply means I have OCD. I also have a hoodie, and I won't stop talking about OCD till we're doing much better. People have access to treatment, affordable, effective care, accessible care, all the stuff. So quickly, this town hall is intended to serve as educational content and is not intended to replace therapy. For treatment-related questions, please be sure to work with your local provider or contact a local clinician. The National OCD Foundation is not a crisis hotline and should not be used if you are in distress or feel unsafe. If you're in a crisis or you're ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please go to your local emergency room. Call 911 or call the suicide prevention hotline at 800-273-8255. As always, we want to be respectful and kind of others, create as safe a space as possible. It's always worth mentioning that this is live on a variety of social media platforms and is being recorded for playback on said social media platforms. So, like I said, we try to create as safe a space, but keep that in mind as you comment and divulge personal things. But we're all here for each other, supporting one another. It's an exciting new year, full of possibilities. And so on that, hey, Mom, it's good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Yes, and yeah, I saw the comment. I also have the OCD. I also have OCD, but I don't know have a hoodie. Where do we? You didn't get the hoodie? I mean, it's like I got OCD, and all I got was this terrible. Yeah, no, OCD comes with a hoodie, man. Fran, thank you for putting the link shop.iocdf.org. All your IOCDF swag is located there, including t-shirts, hoodies, pins, not pens, although they have pens and pins and magnets. Hey, Kathy Rosenberg. All right, so first of all, thank you for being here. I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe and this little bit nutty time. Community conversations. If you were part of the viewing audience of Just Ethan, just Ethan has not died, merely morphed or transcended into this. Really, this happened long before the name change, and this really is when Just Ethan. Hey, Renee, it's good to see you. When Just Ethan became more or less about me talking about a topic for a half hour and then answering questions. We really started having conversation. I ask you questions, you ask me questions, we weigh in on topic, current events, and topics that are important to us right now, in the moment, whatever's on your mind. It's not pre-planned, it's not pre-organized. We are having a conversation with the community. So hence, I wanted to change the name, make it less about me, honestly, and more about what it actually is, which is it's community conversation. We are all here to talk about what's on our mind and support each other through all the ups and downs of not only OCD and related disorders, but life. So that is the explanation of community conversations and how we got here. Fran was able to put the link up on the chat on Facebook. So if you want to check out the IOCDF merch, there you have it. With that, I want to see how is everyone's New Year going. Hit me with some details. How was your New Year? How was your holiday? I know it can be really tough for a lot of folks with OCD. I had my own challenges this New Year's and holiday, and so I'm happy to share, and I probably will. But as we've moved into the new year, I'd love to hear how everyone is doing, what you're dealing with. If great things, not great things. Let's start a conversation about how the first 11 days of 2022 have gone. Obviously, there's an elephant in the room. Omicron is happening, and it's definitely concerning for lots of folks and scary for lots of folks, both inside of the OCD community and outside of the OCD community. Surely do not need OCD to have anxiety right now. So fill me in. Tell me how you are. While we're waiting for that, went on vacation with my girlfriend and soulmate Katie, who many of you know is also a lead advocate. We went to Naples to visit her parents for a week. And I will tell you, it was challenging because, as always, when you get out of your routine and things start to quiet down, your mind starts to find things to worry about. And I don't know if anybody can relate. I know my mind quickly went a scanning, and it'll look for things that you didn't worry about before, that you hadn't worried about in a long time, or even problems that don't exist but exist anyway. I started worrying about my taxes. I don't know why, nothing changed, but I did. I started worrying about my taxes. I started getting some general anxiety disorder about impending doom, nothing overly specific, just what if something bad happens to me on this trip and I ruin it, and all that kind of thinking. And the good news is Florida. Thank you, Eric. Naples, Florida, not Italy, unfortunately, but it was still a great time. But you continue to live into your values and go about your day and have meaningful days. I took naps because it felt good. I was on vacation. I spent time with Katie's family, and we're able to support one another. We're there for each other, and all in all, I had a great time and a great vacation, and was able to relax probably more than I ever had been. But that's not to say that my mind wasn't really busy trying to throw me off course in a variety of ways. And then I'll tell you, got back home, and Katie had to start school on January 3rd, and the height of Omicron, when other schools were closing. And I was a wreck about it, because she's going back, and I have health anxiety, and I'm worried about her health. I'm worried about my health. I'm worried about family's health. So, lots of busyness going on, but I mean, this is a good opportunity to sort of live in the moment and cross bridges as they come. Prepare as best you can. I upgraded our mask inventory, got my hands on a few tests, bought a phone sanitizer, which is kind of really cool. One of those UV light deals you can put anything in, and you kind of wish you could go in there and desanitize yourself. Regardless, you prepare as best you can, and then let it go. And whatever happens, happens, and you deal with it in the moment. But way easier said than done. Little bit about my vacation, my first week or so, diving into 2022. Lots of exciting things, but definitely some challenging things to face as well. And so Sam wrote, I have good news I posted above. Otherwise, it was hard to set down. Oh, wait, Sam, what was your good news that you posted above? Hi from Boston. Glad to be back. I guess best thing in the new year for me was getting the job I've been dreaming of having for over a year. Sam, That's freaking awesome. I have to ask, what is that? If you don't mind sharing, and if you don't want to share, totally okay. But what is that job? Because, as they say, if you're doing what you love, you never work a day in your life. So congratulations, Sam, on that job. That is fantastic. She continues on by saying, otherwise, it was hard to set boundaries and not go home for the holidays, but it truly served me to stay put. Boundaries are a really hard thing to set. I think, whether you have OCD or otherwise, boundaries in all areas of life are very complicated and difficult. I'm definitely really good at setting boundaries in some areas, and not so good in other areas. Vacation, for instance, my boundaries are horrible. I did really good this trip and not working, and probably the best I've ever done at not working. At the same time, though, I really struggle with boundaries, and so boundary setting is awesome. And the power of no. No is a very strong word, and used effectively, it can serve you well. Autumn wrote, I just wrapped up my 12th therapy session for scrupulosity OCD, and I feel a whole lot better. 7 to 9 p.m. Autumn Brook, we got to post that because that's what therapy is about, right? Feeling better. And I think that's awesome. Congratulations, Autumn. There's no set time, and there's no set time, there's no set or certain amount where treatment, ERP, whatever therapy you're doing is supposed to work, right? Everybody responds differently. Doesn't mean that you're any sicker, there's a variety of reasons. And you can have pretty severe OCD and respond really quickly. You can have very mild OCD and respond slowly. And it really is a marathon, not a sprint. And I almost said not a race, but it's a race. It's not a sprint. But the goal is to feel better, and that always doesn't come right away, especially in the beginning. It feels worse before it gets better, but that's proof. That's why we're all here, right? You can get better. You can live in maintenance and recovery and management of OCD and really live, a full life, whatever that means for you, and get your dream job, which I will scroll down because I'm really interested to see what that is. So congrats, Autumn. I look forward to hearing more about your journey. I know Beth wrote above. She's writing a book. And she wrote, OCD doesn't want you to enjoy yourself. No, it typically doesn't. That's kind of OCD's MO. I always picture OCD sort of lounging in the lounger with the sunglasses, or maybe even the reflector tanner thing that nobody's actually used except in the movies. But Beth is writing a book, which is amazing. So congratulations, Beth. Real quick, Ingrid, I see your question. Sam wrote, it's a school counselor job with McLean at Pathways Academy, this year-round school serving kiddos with ASD. That's unbelievable. Giving back. Congratulations, Sam. That's a phenomenal opportunity. And I know and we all wish you the very best, and look forward to hearing all of the great things that happened. You followed by saying, quit my job just before Christmas because I was very unhappy there. And I'm excited to start at a new place I want to show up to every day. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's scary to move into something, different, and lots of uncertainty around. And this is where I always say uncertainty. I like uncertainty, not always, but this is a good opportunity where, like, she quit her job, and I don't know, Sam, honestly, if you had the new job or not, but you don't know what you're getting into. Change can be scary, but it can also be amazing. And the uncertainty about what's this new job going to be like? What am I going to doing? And who am I going to meet? But you don't know if you don't try. And so I love that. And I look forward to, you got to come back and let us know how the new gig is going, because we all want to know, don't we? Ingrid wrote, hi, Ethan, how to face irrational, tormenting thoughts. Great question. So, if we talk about irrational, tormenting thoughts in the scope of OCD, and I specify that because people can have tormenting thoughts for a lot of reasons, and you don't necessarily need OCD to have irrational, tormenting thoughts, but we'll assume it's under the guise and diagnoses of OCD and something related like that. Violent, sexual, intrusive, taboo thoughts are horrific and painful and shameful. I mean, we feel shame for them. They're not shameful to have. Let me specify that. Feel shame. Should not feel shame, but there's a lot of shame and guilt around experiencing them. And obviously they're disconcerting and create a lot of anxiety and fear of the unknown and all of that stuff. I mean, the very first thing, Ingrid, I suggest is, can you engage in treatment? We always say the same thing, exposure response prevention, along with acceptance commitment therapy, perhaps, and other modalities of treatment are really effective in helping cope with OCD and irrational, tormenting thoughts or intrusive thoughts. What that will teach you to do, quickly, is basically, the idea isn't to stop the thoughts. The idea isn't to get rid of the thoughts. The idea is to sort of exist with the thoughts and be okay not being okay, and sort of saying to those thoughts, man, those are awful, and I don't like those, but you know what? If they're going to come, they're going to come. When we don't want the thoughts to come, that's very much the don't think of the pink elephant, don't think of the pink elephant, don't think of the pink elephant. And of course, we're all thinking of pink elephants right now. And the more we fear the thoughts coming, the more we give them power, the more they come. The less we care about something, the less we think about it. And so, essentially, those thoughts are a giant bully. And the more we respond the way the bully wants us to, the more they bully us. And the more we're like, bring it, I don't care, the less it bullies us, right? And so that's a very simplified version but you can face them, and they do get quieter. But I would go to IOCDF.org. You can read more about intrusive thoughts and ways to engage in treatment and therapy. Books you can read, and I can make some suggestions as well. But you're not alone. I'm sure everyone here can relate to having intrusive thoughts, or as you said, tormenting thoughts. I know that I will tell you, when I was worried about self-harm a lot before I got better, my tormenting thought was I constantly saw myself like bashing my head into the tile, and when I showered, it's all I saw over and over again, just bleed. It was gross. And like, it was just, that thought tormented me over and over again. Did I do it? Did I not do it? What if I do it? What if I want to do it? And I'm sure you can relate, Ingrid, to some of the things that I'm saying. But therapy is quite effective, and you have to sort of lean into the fire. There's no way around it, as much as we want it to be. But when you do walk through the fire, you come out the other side. You feel a lot better. And I know just above, actually, in our previous comment, why can't I find her good? Who wrote? I'm so sorry. I usually am sharper than this and on top of that. But Autumn. Autumn is proof. I'm sure she had some, and maybe Autumn will share a little bit about what she experienced prior to therapy and what she's experiencing now. So thank you. Mary, hi, Ethan. My daughter is 30 and has severe OCD. Is it realistic for my daughter to get better after 3 weeks in an intensive treatment program? It's at 7:13 p.m. Fran, saw it pop up. All good. That's a great question. I think, and I sort of answered this a little bit, is that when we enter intensive treatment programs, whether it's intensive outpatient or residential, we really have to set our expectations at a reasonable level. Okay, so your daughter's 30, has severe OCD. It's reasonable to assume she's probably suffered or struggled with OCD for a long time. Probably may have been diagnosed a long time ago, may have recently been diagnosed. There's lots of variables that determine how quickly somebody may or may not get well. And inevitably, we can't look at an intensive outpatient program or an intensive residential program as the silver bullet. Really, what these are is they are programs designed to lay the foundation for individuals to have the toolkit to be able to successfully manage OCD. Okay. And that management happens long after you leave treatment. So, and a lot of that hard work happens long after you leave treatment, or if you stay in treatment in a maintenance capacity, whether it's 3 times a week or twice a week or once a week, and so on and so on and so on. So essentially, these residential or intensive outpatient programs are designed to give individuals a playbook around their specific symptomatology and subtypes of OCD, so they get used to engaging in response prevention, engaging in not compulsing, sitting with that intense anxiety, and what that feels like, and having that 24/7 support if it's residential, or 5-6 hours if it's outpatient. But regardless, get used to that. The goal is to then move into a less intense environment or setting where you can engage in life more and simultaneously activate the tools that you've learned to help you manage the OCD. So better is a tricky term. And we kind of want to be flexible with our definition of what it means to be better from OCD. So, for instance, you can do years of ERP, exposure response prevention, which is the gold standard treatment for therapy. But if you don't fully surrender to it, if you do what's called white knuckling through it, which is just kind of grin and bearing it, right? You could be in treatment for years and it's not effective because you have to surrender to this idea of letting the fears and uncomfortable thoughts and feelings be there and respond in a certain way. So there's a lot of variables. The short of it answer is, yeah, somebody can go for 3 weeks and get better, and other people may not, and that's not a judgment or comment on them as a person, or even necessarily, their OCD. It really is just a confluence of circumstances, and we just have to be willing to be flexible. Your daughter may need more outpatient treatment, maybe once a week, might need another round of intensive, maybe peer support or support groups. But at the end of the day, these programs are designed to really give you a foundation. A lot of people achieve. Listen, I watched people when I was in residential get better all around me, and I went, "Why is everyone getting better but me?" Like, oh, my roommate in 3 weeks was like, "I can do all this stuff that I couldn't do before," and I was like, not able to do any of that, any of the things that I thought I'd be able to do. I went in thinking that, well, this is where people go that are really severe, and so I'm going to get better here. And if a lot of you that know my story know that's not exactly how it happened, but it laid the foundation for which I never would have gotten better without the skills and tools that I learned there. So the answer to your question is, it's realistic, but it isn't necessarily going to happen for everyone. And it doesn't mean if it didn't happen that there's just no hope and that it's not going to work and my daughter's OCD is too severe. That's not the case at all. It's just everybody's circumstance is different. And if you want to talk about it further, please feel free to comment, or you can leave a comment with the IOCDF and we can talk about it further as well. So hi, Megan. I know everyone, actually, you're Megan. You're hi, Ethan. I know everyone always says how incredibly real OCD urges can feel. Do you have any tips that help deal with the realness? It can be so overwhelming and cause so much anxiety. Well, when you say real OCD urges, I'm assuming like when you feel that intense need to act out on a fear that you don't want to act out on, right? That's what I'm assuming you're talking about. And I relate to that. In many ways, you can even get the feelings in your muscles and in groin regions and things like that, right? So the way we respond to these urges is similar to the thoughts. Feelings and urges for OCD are really highlighters to further convince you that what you're thinking is going to happen, or that you're going to do that thing, or that something's not right. Right? It's one thing to think it, but if you feel it, then that must be true. And moreover, if you feel the urge to do it, then it must really going to happen. I can't tell you again, when I was really ill, my whole thing was fear of hitting my head. I was afraid I was just going to start bashing my head with my fist, and I felt like I was doing everything I could to keep my fists from suddenly hitting my head. My muscles would tighten. I could feel tingling and sensations. We have to treat urges and feelings like we treat the thoughts, which is we can recognize that they're there. We can recognize that we're comfortable, that they're uncomfortable, but we sort of have to sit with it and trust that it's OCD. Trust that even with the urge, I know it feels that much closer to doing that thing or engaging in that fear, but trusting that it's OCD, being willing to let that thing happen in an effort to not be a slave to OCD is really where it's at. So you treat urges like the thoughts and the feelings, which is you notice it's uncomfortable, you give yourself lots of compassion about it, but at the same time you're like, you know what? I'm gonna take the chance that this is OCD, and I'm not gonna compulse, I'm not gonna restrain myself or prevent myself or move away from that thing that I have an urge. I'm gonna stick with it and take the chance because I'm pretty certain that it's OCD. And so I'm going to do what feels like an irresponsible thing, and I'm going to move forward with my life in a value-driven way, whatever that looks like to you in the moment, and let that urge be there. And whatever happens, happens. It's really hard to do. I always say that very humbly, but that's how you do it. And we can talk more about urges as well, because urges are a great conversation to talk about. Renee, how are you? New Year has been difficult. I have been feeling beat down by my OCD anxiety, but your email response back to me had me thinking, am I willing to accept that the worst possible outcome may happen and put OCD to bed? I am pondering that. Thank you for your response, by the way. You're welcome, Renee. I kind of touched on this before, and I'll give out my email at the end, even though new name, but I'll probably still give out my email because we like to have conversations, and that's what it's about. So, leave that up for a sec, Fran. What I told Renee was what she wrote: willing to accept that the worst possible outcome may happen in order to put OCD to bed. This whole thing, if you have this isn't so much for just right OCD, because that's more of a feeling base, but anything that revolves around contamination, religiosity, harm, self-harm, harm of others, it encompasses a large swath of OCD, right? In order to really surrender to this idea, it feels very irresponsible to ignore the thoughts and feelings and not compulse, because the compulsion is what we've programmed ourselves to believe is what's keeping, not only reducing the anxiety and making us feel better, but it's keeping us safe, keeping someone else safe, keeping us from going to hell, keeping us from touching a child or whatever it is, right? So in an essence, we have to be willing for the possibility for whatever it is our fear is to come true in order to let it go. Because if we're constantly defending against it, we can't ever go on the offense, which means we can't ever live our lives, because we're constantly blocking and doing to protect ourselves or someone else against something happening that probably won't ever happen because it's OCD. And when I came to that realization myself, and I'll tell you the exact moment was, and again, there's a lot of new individuals on here. Fran, if you wouldn't mind posting a link to my keynote speech, that would be awesome. You can follow the link. That's my whole story when I spoke at the OCD conference in 2014. If people want more context as to what I'm talking about. But for me, engaging in life was really scary because I was really afraid to ignore my OCD. And my OCD told me that I had a problem with my brain and I needed to go to a hospital. And unless I moved, if I didn't move, I was safe. If I was in bed, if I didn't move, if I were laying on top of my hands, then I knew that nothing had happened. The minute I moved, did I hit my head, my brain injury, all this stuff, right? So, which sounds silly, but I believed it at the time as much as possible, and I wasn't willing to live with the uncertainty that it may not happen, because in my mind, in my mind, I'm not going to take a chance with my life. In reality, the moment of clarity came when I realized in order for me to move forward in life, I really had to let myself potentially something be wrong with me. So as much as I believed this thing may have happened, there's a small part of me that believed it didn't happen. But in essence, I was saying to myself, gosh, my body, my emotions, the tingling, the sensations, everything tells me that I've got this brain aneurysm because I might have hit my head. So I should go to the hospital and get checked out, even though I've done it 100 times before. But I'm not going to. I'm going to live with the possibility that something may happen to me, understanding that it's most likely OCD, and move forward with my life and let that just be there. And it's terrifying. It's so scary. Nobody wants to face their biggest fear and ignore it because it feels totally irresponsible and dangerous. But every day I got up and every day I thought, this is the day I'm going to die because I'm not paying attention. And every day I went about my life. And every day I was able to start to integrate treatment and integrate therapy and integrate tools and all kinds of things that I wasn't willing to do before. And so very slowly but surely, the more I let my guard down, the more I stopped protecting myself from what if. Good name for a book, Protecting Myself from What If. Don't take that. The more I stopped protecting myself from what if, the more free I became, and the quieter OCD got, and the less I cared, because action was speaking louder than imagination and OCD and all that stuff. And eventually, over time, it started to become very manageable for me. It's not to say I can't go outside now and hit my head and have a brain bleed, but for right now, I'm not going to live my life guarding against it. And that's what I meant to Renee from my own lived experience. That's what I meant when I told Renee, we have to accept that the worst possible outcome may happen. That fear may happen. No different than you can walk out now and get hit by a car. That is a viable outcome. There's a cat playing with a bird toy in the back of my office because I share my office with my cat. Oh, yep, there we go. All right. There she is. She's she's really interested in what I have to say. Okay, anyway. But that's what I mean by being willing to let that outcome, right? We have to just embrace that it's OCD. We have to embrace that the individuals that are telling us to just deal with it and move forward and give ourselves lots of compassion and sit with it, that they want the best for us, right? They don't want us to die. They don't want us to be miserable. They don't want bad things to happen. They want us to get better. So are we going to trust in that, right? Are we going to take that leap of faith, that radical faith? We're going to take that sort of blind jump, understanding that there is something beautiful on the other side. We just may not be able to see it until we actually make that jump, which is scary. So thank you, Fernay, for posting that. Mario wrote, wow, until November 21st, my eyes were opened. I thought I was the only human being going through this condition. Mario, you are not alone, my friend. You are definitely not alone. Thank you for finding us and the IOCDF. You are not the only one going through this condition, although I think many of us at times felt like we were the only ones going through this condition. So I look forward to talking further. And you are amongst friends in a community here. Expressing yourself, but isn't OCD actually who? Let's see. But isn't OCD actually you who is thinking the thoughts? You do exposures and break your habitual unhealthy behaviors, then happy days. Not sure what you're getting at. Isn't OCD actually you who is thinking the thoughts? I mean, sure. I mean, I get what you're saying. So, I mean, OCD is a, to the best understanding, it's a glitch, right? And in the prefrontal cortex of our brain, where we get trapped in a feedback loop and so forth. So, if you will, and maybe I'm off base, but this is what I think, if you will, our brain is the airplane and OCD is the hijacker. Okay. So OCD is taking our thoughts and they're using our thoughts and our creativity and our imagination and in our intellect and using it against us. So we have this little tiny glitch miswiring going on in our brain, because the reality is our thoughts are no different than anybody else's thoughts. And I always say that, and it's the truth. OCD thoughts are not different than anybody else's thoughts. Everybody has the same thoughts, right? We just get stuck on one particular thought, assign emotion to it, get a feeling and develop anxiety, and then we invent a compulsion that makes us feel better, and there begins it, right? But I very much think of OCD as the bully or the hijacker of the brain, right? That is causing the havoc. So sure, yeah, there are thoughts, of course they are, but no different than cancer affects our cells. They're still our cells, but cancer isn't who we are. And OCD is a disorder in our brain, but it doesn't define us. So that's how I look at it. But I love what you said. You do the exposures, break your habit and healthy behaviors, and happy days. At least a full life and a chance at happy days for sure. Nikki wrote, my dear friend in Dublin, which if this disease, we can travel, I got to come visit. I'm really struggling, to be honest. Probably the worst I felt since the start of COVID. Health, anxiety, depression, other OCD issues. Feel I'm on a downward slide. Was waiting for this tonight to offload. Thank you. Well done to Beth Carducci for writing the book. Nikki, we love you. We're here for you. You're totally not alone, with all this stuff, especially all our friends with health anxiety and Morals Group and, and all that stuff. I don't think it's an easy time for anybody with everything that's going on. And so you're definitely not alone, and look at you for showing up. So, applause for showing up, because sometimes that's hard to do when you're feeling depressed and feel like you're sliding down and like, what's the point and all that stuff. So this tells me there's some fight in you, which we always know you're a fighter, and there's some hope in you. So, lean on your tools, lean on your skills, look at some live streams, read some books, engage in, whatever you need to do for you, Nikki, and email me if you want to, and we can talk. But thanks for being here, because I always get happy when I see your face. Autumn wrote, after I started therapy, I thought about my past thoughts and told my therapist I can see all the parts of the OCD cycle now: obsession, anxiety, compulsions, and relief. That's brilliant. I mean, that is the cycle, right? That is the cycle. Listen, if compulsions didn't work, we wouldn't do them. Of course they do. They give us relief. That's why we do them. But after a while, the relief gets less and less and less and less, until we don't get the relief we wanted, until we do more and more and more and more, and it becomes a vicious, nasty cycle. So well done, Autumn. You've learned a lot in 12 sessions. That's awesome. Expressing yourself wrote, intrusive thoughts don't exist, in my opinion. They become intrusive when you attach anxiety to it. You can overcome OCD 100% where it doesn't bother you. I appreciate that opinion, expressing yourself, and I'm all for positive opinions on this. And absolutely, my one thing I'll say to this is that, you know, I don't know that we make a conscious choice to attach anything to it. It's the disease and the disorder, similar to the way I described cancer. So, I think that human beings have intrusive thoughts. They get a thought that they don't like, and then they dismiss it. Individuals with OCD may get an intrusive thought, and it gets sticky, and that's the disorder itself, right? And then we have to learn to undo it. And I don't know what your own experience is, but if you no longer have any type of OCD thoughts, that's fantastic, and I look forward to hearing more from you. Um, let's see. Let's get to some questions. Eric B wrote, where we meet. Well, that's good. I appreciate it. Where we meet wrote, agreed. I wish the IOCDF would talk about recovery in a better and more inspirational light. Either of you, this is what this conversation is for. This is what this live stream is for. This is for conversation, and we don't shy away from anybody's conversation. I would be very interested to know what you'd like to hear. I know from and if you feel that I don't talk about recovery from OCD in a more inspirational light, if you think that the way I talk about it is negative or is, I make a very strong effort to say that right now there's no cure. You may agree or disagree. That's what the science tells us. It's a chronic disorder, but it doesn't mean that you have chronic symptoms all the time, and you can live a beautiful, full life. I've said it a million times for those of you that have been on the stream. I have days, weeks, months where I forget I have OCD. I have more good days than bad. Doesn't mean that every day is great. But I went from completely not functioning, in bed after not functioning for 30 years to having a beautiful life. And so I think that's extremely inspirational. And, so I totally agree with you. And if we're not doing that, I'd love to get more feedback from you so we can potentially address it. So thank you for that. Eric wrote, if you who are thinking the thoughts, but they come from a small part of your brain that is stuck and can't be consciously controlled, but you're right, that doesn't mean you should feel helpless. Absolutely, Eric. Well said. In the 80s, they said, it's not me, it's my OCD. Now we say, it is me, it's my OCD. Well played. We love Eric. Don't ever play trivia against him. He will crush you. And I still have to get to the bottom of why that's the fact, but he's a smart guy. Katerina, and I know we want to talk about stuff, but I want to try to get to everybody's questions. Katerina, how do you sit with the intense anxiety during exposure? I've been trying to do it more as I've done it with some things, but then when I try with other things that feel like should be small, it's so hard. First of all, don't be so judgy. I think we do a good job of assigning, what should be easy and what shouldn't be easy. I think it comes down to your hierarchy. Some things we can address easily and sit with the discomfort and anxiety, and other things we have a harder time doing that. I think you have to take comfort and hope from the fact that the smaller things worked. The thing that the process works. So when it comes to the harder things, it can take more time. It can take more patience. It can take a different approach. It can take maybe perhaps a reframe on your end or how you're approaching it or engaging with it. Sometimes the things that you did for the smaller stuff doesn't necessarily work, and you have to come at it from a different angle. At the end of the day, we have to have a lot of compassion for that fact and understand that, as we move up through our stuff, it can get harder and more difficult, and depending on the level of your anxiety. I know for me, I needed other types of therapy to help me cope with my emotional dysregulation that I would have when I got triggered. I would fall apart and cry into a puddle of mud on the floor. I flooded many an office. In fact, it's quite a feat. But so if you're dysregulated or get so worked up that you can't really engage in the treatment, then that's hard. But that doesn't mean that you can't get past it. That means that maybe you might want to look at like dialectical behavioral therapy or things that can help you with emotional regulation, and then move back to some of those exposures where your SUDS gets really up there and stays there, and may have some extra tools to cope with. But yeah, you can definitely get there. You are not alone in that. And just keep plugging away and ask questions and access treatment and therapy if you can. And it's a good conversation. So thank you for saying that. You're definitely not alone in that, but you can do it. And the other thing is, well, this is the other thing. I always make the analogy that, ERP is like working out in the gym, right? So, it's similar to, it gets harder. And so, if you're lifting weights and you keep increasing the weights, it gets much harder to lift. So sometimes you have to take a step back and train a little bit differently or do something different, because what you were doing isn't going to get you to that next place. So maybe you have to go back and do more conditioning. Maybe you got to work on arms for 4 weeks before you tackle that extra, X pounds or whatever. So, I would look at creative ways, Katerina, that you could maybe take on these higher areas of your hierarchy, or things that, feel so hard. Why is it that you're potentially not willing to sit with discomfort or anxiety, or it scares you so much that you finally give in and do the compulsion? And try to maybe identify some of the reasons behind that, and maybe some small behavioral changes, and that's it. Maybe break it down. Also, maybe what you're setting yourself up to do is a little too big right now. So, like, what would it look like to do it in teeny, small, tiny bites? If you're trying to, as a simple example, if you're taking 6-hour showers, try to take a 5-hour and 50-minute shower. Can we break it down into a little bit more achievable goals? You're welcome, Mary. Beth wrote, "It's amazing that you were letting the worry about Katie being back at work go, and you were stating you were prepped to deal with whatever may happen. You were taking precautions and not letting fear rule you." Thank you, Beth. I'm super proud of myself. I had terrible health anxiety in high school and college. It morphed when I got really sick to self-harm, but since COVID, my health anxiety has spiked. And very much going into the new year, I felt very similar to how when COVID first came out. It was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it was terrifying. Most of us were terrified. And obviously we have more information, and whether you're vaccinated, there's a lot of things. But the bottom line is that last year, before Omicron and even Delta, I got used to Katie going to school and doing things, and felt pretty safe, and the precautions that we were taking to protect ourselves and others. And all that kind of went out the window with first Delta and then Omicron. So yeah, last week was challenging for sure. But what can I do? What can I do? I'm just willing to let the anybody know James Chandler? I don't, but if you're in Destin and your name is James, I can't come to the phone right now. I have no clue who that is. But the bottom line is, I am willing. I'm going to do what I can and let the possibility of it happen in order to continue living a value-driven life. I'm going to take precautions, but not too many precautions, right? I'm not going to sanitize my phone every 3 minutes. I'm not going to wear a mask indoors. I'm not going to wash my hands every 2 seconds. I'm not going to not go outside or not go to the grocery store. Am I going to go to a bar with 1,000 people right now? No. And if you choose to do it, that's okay too. Zero judgment from me. But I appreciate that, Beth. I will take that, and that's an honor coming from you. So, Josh. Oh, hi, Josh. Josh wrote, "Intrusive feelings and thoughts are like when you're listening to the radio and you get interference from another station on the same frequency. It's annoying and it's a real experience, but the best thing to do is just keep driving." That's great. I love that. You can wave at it. You can be like, "Oh, yep, there it is. There it is." But you know what? It is what it is. I like that. I like the interference analogy, Josh. Thank you for that. Um, Expressing yourself said, "Why do why do people label everything you suffer from obsession due to anxiety?" Well, actually, we could feel free to email me, and we can debate more of this if you'd like to. We're actually moving OCD out of an anxiety disorder into something else, but we can definitely talk about that. And I think we have to challenge the way we think, because that's what helps us grow. So I appreciate the comments, and please feel free to continue. Um, let's see here. Uh, Protecting myself from what if Ethan Smith. Oh, yes. That is the book name, isn't it? Um, Thank you very much. Josh wrote, "With illness, anxiety, OCD, I've accepted the possibility of my imminent death so many times that it's more annoying than terrifying at this point." And that's a great way to approach it, right? It does become annoying and it becomes silly, and we just stop caring. It becomes a mosquito as opposed to a T-Rex. And that's really the goal. Um, you can get to a place where you don't even notice the buzzing around you. Kind of like if you watch Naked and Afraid, on that first night, things are loud and they're swatting themselves, and the stuff is nuts, and they're naked and they're afraid. But as they get 20 days in, they're worried about food, but they don't notice half the stuff. Their reticular activating system is kicked in, and they've habituated to a lot of the things that originally bothered them. My imminent death, I felt the same way about my imminent death, Josh. And after a while, I was like, yes, I hit my head. I'm sure I did. I'm sure I'm bleeding now. It's kind of stupid and kind of funny. And I'm going to move on with my life now. Yeah, I agree with you. Beach Life wrote, it's strange having OCD and knowing that these horrible thoughts that control you. Wait, it's strange having OCD and knowing that these horrible thoughts that control you and your actions are completely either made up or blown out of proportion. Interesting. I would argue that, your thoughts. So OCD is a choice. It doesn't feel like that, but OCD is when we feel like we have to do a compulsion, it's an I won't. Let me rephrase that. When we do a compulsion or feel like we have to, when somebody says don't do that, you're choosing to do the compulsion. It's not an I can't not do that, it's I won't. But without treatment and therapy or understanding or insight, it feels like an I can't. For years, I was like, I didn't understand when people were telling me to not compulse. I'm like, I can't not compulse. What do you mean not compulse? But it's still a choice. It's still a behavior. And so, we're not being controlled. Our actions aren't being controlled in a way that's like, somebody's got a remote control and they're making us do this. OCD can't do that. It can convince you of things and you can then, make a choice. But other things are, the made up and blown out of proportion. That's very much an oversimplification of OCD. There's real event OCD, which is based on real things happening. A lot of times OCD comes out of trauma, comes out of experiences in our own life that were very real. And I wouldn't ever say that any mental illness is blown out of proportion. In reality, everybody's reality is unique to them and real to them, and we never want to judge that or place judgment on anybody is what they perceive to be real or are fearful or concerned about. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for forgetting the name. I apologize. But as they wrote above about having trouble doing this one thing, can't ever compare ourselves to anybody else, or anybody else's OCD or, oh, that person can walk to the mailbox. Why can't I walk to the mailbox? Well, why can't you? Because you have OCD and it's challenging. And maybe that's the thing that you struggle with. And, and that's okay. And so we never want to make comparisons. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Beth wrote, don't feed the OCD monster. It only makes it stronger. You're absolutely right. I'll give the bully analogy in a moment. We have normally appraised. Hey, Mike Sizemore, good to see you. And Michael Schramm is in the house. Nikki wrote, oh, thank you, Ethan. Now you have me crying. I better go do the dishes. A shout out to Beth. Everything is full circle. This is fantastic. Expressing I appreciate your comments and your passion. I think at the end of the day, we perhaps have different views, and but we appreciate you sharing yours. And if you want to learn more about what the experts and experiences are, feel free to visit IOCDF.org, and you can learn more about what actual obsessive compulsive disorder is. Jason wrote, what is the best method to keep a written tracking of OCD symptoms? How much can this be helpful? It can and it can't be helpful. It can and it can't be helpful depending on why you're doing it. And so sometimes a therapist will ask you to keep a log of certain things. If that's the case, that's helpful because they want to determine how much of the time you're compulsing or obsessing, and how much how much emotion you give it, and how if you're able to resist it, how much dysfunction is it causing, so forth and so on. And so there are clinical implications to doing that. If the question we have to ask ourselves is, why are you doing it? Why do you want to do it? And is it something compulsive? Do you want to track because you're afraid of something, or you want to pay attention to something, or you want to know exactly how much you want to do it? But many times, a lot of therapists will ask to keep a journal just to get it basic. But I can tell you, for most therapists, that isn't an ongoing process. Maybe in the beginning, they may give you some sort of worksheet or breakdown to sort of get an idea of where you're at, measure or look, give me a glimpse into the week, similar to what the Yale-Brown obsessive compulsive scale, the Y box, does. Asks you how many hours per day do you obsess, compulse, interfere, things like that. But long term, that's not typically a scale that's continued to be measured. Some therapists may do it and have found success. I'm not a therapist. I'm only speaking from lived experience, but it really depends on the why, Jason. Um, but long term, it really is not about tracking how many times or not times. It's about really your ability to sit with the discomfort, not engage in a compulsion. That's the response prevention. Be willing to expose yourself to whatever it is and move forward with your values accordingly. Hey, Ethan, one of my imaginal scripts actually came true. Any experience like that? Any advice? Thanks, bro. Great. I love this comment. 7:41 p.m. Fran, sorry about that. Um, so, so, you know, here's the thing. Life is circumstantial. So similarly, um, I've made no qualms about it. I have a food poisoning thing. I'm afraid food's undercooked. The chicken I ate tonight, sat in the fridge for 3 days. That scares me. So I half heated it. That scared me even more because I was rushing to get on with you. Thanks for the trigger. Kidding. Um, so one time I was eating coleslaw and it tasted funky, and I was like, you know what? It's just OCD. That's bullshit. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna not eat the coleslaw, and I got terrible food poisoning. And I was like, oh my god, my OCD came true. You know what? The reality is depending on what your OCD is, real event OCD or things around circumstances can happen. And the reality of it is you have to ask yourself, do I still want to protect myself daily from that thing coming true? Or is it still worth it possibly coming true to live a meaningful life the rest of the time? And, for me, quite honestly, I would get food poisoning all the time over going back to the life that I had without knowing more specifics, John. But I mean, if I can relate to that in that way, and so the advice is to keep doing what you're doing. Like we don't have control over very much. We have control over our focus and our behavior, and that's it. So stuff's gonna happen. You can have a fear of getting hit by a car. You may get hit by a car. Exposure response prevention and treatment and therapy isn't about proving that it isn't going to happen. It's not trying to show you that, oh, look, every time you've done this exposure, see, it didn't happen, so now you can know it doesn't happen. That's not what it's about. Exposure response prevention therapy is helping you learn with the uncertainty. As Josh commented, it becomes an annoyance. It's like, whatever, maybe it will, maybe it won't. You're never actually saying this isn't going to happen. You're always acknowledging, well, it's a possibility, but I'm going to assume it's my OCD until I have to cross this bridge and deal with it, whether it's getting hit by a car or a magical thinking, like you wear a blue shirt and a train explodes. Could it happen? It might. Do you want to choose to live in a world where you never wear a blue shirt? I love blue. That would be a terrible world. So I think you really have to ask yourself, how much interference to your life would happen if you decide to protect yourself from the thing that happens, or the thing that you're afraid of happening, or that maybe actually happen. Super quick, and I hate to steal this story because it's such a great story, and I don't do it justice. But Dr. John Grayson, who is a brilliant therapist and a dear friend of the IOCDF, tells this amazing story. Long story short, he was treating a woman who was deathly afraid of killing those that she loved just by thinking it, and she got into treatment, and they had decided to pick 3 people that she was going to kill with her mind. And they picked the 3 people, and I think the first one on the list was her dad. And she had to, her exposures was to think about killing these people. And I think this was on a Tuesday or Wednesday. On a Friday, her dad dropped out of a heart attack. Well, needless to say, that kind of put a bump in therapy. But the moral of the story is, like, did she kill him with her mind? We don't know to this day, but Dr. Grayson said to her, you still have 2 more people to kill. We said you have to kill 3 people. She got back into therapy. That was many years ago. She wasn't able to kill the other 2 people. And the reason I tell you the story is to your point, it came true. And the connection came true. Whether it was related or not, none of us really know. Probably not. It's probably her OCD. But I can't imagine. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that's your fear and that happens? Like, if you're even willing, God, I don't know who this person is. Obviously, they can't identify them, but God bless them for going back to therapy and embracing that. Like, I ate bad coleslaw. Like, your father, I can't even imagine, but it goes to show you, the power of this therapy is effective and it works. So hopefully you take something from that, and that makes sense, John, to your question. Let's see here. I'm just sorting through comments. Renee wrote, hey, Ethan, before I leave for the evening, I just want to say thank you for doing this channel. You're an angel and have helped me so much. See you on the next community conversation. Absolutely, Renee. I feel the same way about you. And thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your insight. You know, we're all in this together. Hey, Mike, again. Beth wrote, I love this group so much. We love you. And I do want to say, you know, I want to make this positive. Not that I want to highlight because I don't necessarily agree, but it's expressing yourself heard at 7:49 p.m. You know, this is like this is the satellite radio of OCD live stream. So we can do this. But he wrote, Ethan, I promise you, brother, you can recover 100% where it's gone forever. You know, I feel recovered. That's the thing. I love who I am. I love where I'm at. I have a beautiful life. And without OCD, I wouldn't know any of you. So like, you know, if you know, we can agree to disagree on the whole cure thing. I hope to God there's a cure one day, but you know what? If there isn't, my life is fantastic. And I will use my life and talk about my life every single day in the most positive way I can to give as many people hope that they can get better too. Because if I can get better, they can. Because I was extremely sick, as so many were, as so many are. My OCD, my OCD is not special. Okay, our OCD is OCD, you know, but recovered can look like management. It can look like maintenance. You know, recovered can be, I am living a beautiful life. I have a beautiful job. I have a beautiful partner. Doesn't mean my life is perfect. So, you know, we have to re-identify what recovery looks like with OCD. You know, you can have a pretty magnificent life and still have OCD. And that's an important message. That's my opinion. It's my show. If you don't like it, tune in anyway, because I love the numbers. I'm just saying. Mark, it's every other Tuesday. Yes, just curious. So every other Tuesday. So it's this Tuesday, and then not next Tuesday, but the following Tuesday, in case you were wondering what every other Tuesday is. So yes, every other Tuesday. And yeah, thank you, Fran. I appreciate it. You can visit iocdf.org/peace of mind for all the details and all the live streams up and coming. Carol wrote, Jenna related so much to what you talked about. Ethan, God bless you if you're recovered. You know, that's my definition of recovered. So I appreciate that, expressing yourself. Thank you, Ethan and Jess. It's Fran behind the scenes today. We love Fran. Lastly, Ethan, any words of encouragement to help someone get the strength to do ERP? Yeah, there's help. There's hope. It's the key. It's the key to unlocking OCD. And there's other treatments. But the reality is, I always say this, but you know, if I can get better, you can too. Look at the comments. These are all people, you know, that are living in different areas of management and maintenance with OCD. And while their days may not be perfect, or, you know, they're all examples of what treatment in this community can do. And you are not alone, as Mario found out. You're not alone. And so, you know, be willing to feel uncomfortable. Short-term pain, long-term gain. It is not about feeling good right away. It is about feeling good later on. And so, you know, you're gonna feel uncomfortable. You're gonna feel gross. It's gonna feel scary. But that means OCD is close, and that's your opportunity to really grab it and take hold of it and punch it a few times and knock it back. But you've got this, and we're all here to support you in any way that we can. Lastly, let's do some housekeeping. And no, Heather, nothing is coleslaw. Nothing is coleslaw. Nothing is sacred. Not even coleslaw. But along with our book title, perhaps we can start a brand called Sacred Coleslaw, because that would be a great coleslaw. We should all go on Shark Tank. Let's talk about this. We should all go on Shark Tank. All right. So first of all, I want to thank the IOCDF, and I want to thank Fran for frying the Freens. I want to thank Fran behind the scenes for keeping the lights on. That's my new line. I used to say for doing his digital doo-doo, but I've changed it. 2022 is keeping the lights on. I wrote that earlier. I'm very proud of that. Wednesday, tomorrow, the 12th, 12 p.m. Eastern, we have a research roundtable with John Abramowitz and Kyle King, panel of experts on research topic related to OCD and related disorders. Oh, the role of inflammation in psychiatric disorders. That's tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern on all of our platforms. For any families tuning in, online OCD camp coming up January 22nd and 23rd. It's a 2-day program of interactive sessions for teens and middle schoolers, youth, and parents. We encourage you to visit iocdf.org/OCD camp to learn and register before spots fill up, because they're filling up. They're just filling up. John, you can get the hoodie above at the IOCDF merch store. I think it's shop.iocdf.org. I want to make a joke like if you mention my name, you get 10% off, but Fran would probably be pulling his hair off. But I don't know, Fran, can I have a coupon code? All the influencers have coupon codes. And I'm not an influencer, but I feel like if you're here, you get something. We'll talk about it. We'll work on that. Don't buy yet. No, I'm kidding. Buy. Support. Fran's going to kill me. So this live stream is one of many. You can view the entire live stream schedule and subtopics and submit. Okay, let me slow down. This is all brand new because it's a brand new year. So this live stream is one of many, and you can view the entire live streams and schedule at iocdf.org/peace of mind. You can also submit topics and questions for future live streams by visiting that page as well. So questions, topics, suggestions. Oh, I like it. Promo, Ethan 10. Let's make it happen. Discount code coming next, community converse. All right, tune in next week. I mean, every other Tuesday. So not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, we'll have a coupon code for percentage off at the merch store. We'll get everybody in hoodies. It's going to happen. Finally, remember to like and subscribe to get notified when live streams are scheduled. You can like and subscribe on YouTube and Facebook. There it is. You can also subscribe on Twitch. Hey now. And then finally, if we didn't get to your question or if you have suggestions for a future topic you'd like to see covered, please go to iocdf.org/peace of mind to submit. If you need resources, you can visit iocdf.org. So as you see, we're rolling everything into iocdf.org/peace of mind. Comments, questions, suggestions, it will all go there and will all be directed to all of us. With that being said, I don't know if I'm yet willing to give up the Just Ethan email. I like talking with everyone. So let's go ahead and put it up. If you want to email me, just go straight to me. You can email me at justethan@iocdf.org. I think we have it still. Do we still have it? Yeah, it still exists. It hasn't gone AOL quite yet. So yeah, I answer that. We'll probably keep it going. I am caught up on all the emails too. So now's the chance. Now, like, I'm caught up. Like, things are caught up. There's no emails in that inbox. So so email me there. And seriously, if you have any comments or questions, visit iocdf.org. And you can always contact them through. Finally, love Lana, tell Katie we said hi and good night. Ethan, I absolutely will do that. With all of that, thank you for joining me tonight. Community conversations in the house officially, right? AOL. I used it as a verb. It happens. It's a good year. Things are happening. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe. Stay vigilant. Feel the feels. Don't let IOCD off the hook. Thank you for your support. In all honesty, sincerity, thank you for a beautiful conversation. Thank you for the advocacy. We'll see you in 2 weeks. In the meantime, join tomorrow, Wednesday, 12 p.m. for John and Kyle, and we'll see you later. Have a good night. Bye, Mario. Good night.